All right, everybody, welcome back to Fantasy Points. This should be the last installment of this week's roundtable. It's still me and my boy Nate here.
Yep.
Rob, Eric, and Brent.
Yeah, sure.
Holding it down. Last discussion, we all did top picks for Rookie of the Year, MVP, and our IDP picks, which a lot of people don't know. That's individual defensive players. If your fantasy league doesn't use it, consider it. It's just more points. I mean, you get beats, you get tackles and picks and return yards, everything. So everyone's going to give one standout for that. But I guess we're going to do Rookie of the Year first. So anybody want to start right off that knows, or you just go in order?
I'll take it.
All right.
My Rookie of the Year is Tavon Austin. I think that Sam Bradford's finally going to have a little bit better of a season than he's had since his career started. And they're saying they're running plays just for him. I mean, he's a very versatile player. And that's my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I like Tavon Austin, man. I mean, in the slot for St. Louis, like you said, you talked about Givens a little bit, who it looks like in the preseason, but I think if you give someone with that much talent some time,
almost like a Randall Cobb.
Austin could. Yeah, that's a good comparison. He's very small. I've seen that, but we always talk about that.
He's got the speed. He's quick.
Yeah, that's one of those dudes that offenses will make plays around, like Harvin or something. Like you can do that.
Size though, his durability. Once he gets hit by some giant safety in the NFL, he's gonna be seeing stars. I think.
Yeah, he's small.
I think a good comparison would be more Deshaun Jackson. I think they look exactly the
That
same.
is a good comparison.
He's even shorter though.
Yeah.
No,
They
he's
both-
small. I've seen him get interviewed by
They both played at Cal.
Rachel
didn't they?
Nichols the other day, and
No,
her size.
Tavon came from
Like,
West
for
Virginia.
real. And she probably had heels on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I like Tavon Austin. Just go around. I'll go next. I wrote down a few because we did defense for a minute, so I was really thinking, I think the Rookie of the Year will probably be defensive just because they end up making an impact earlier. I thought about like a linebacker. I thought about D. Milliner, being a cornerback. Could be all the Jets got, but the name that I landed on, which I know none of y'all have, is Matt Elam from Florida.
Oh.
For the Ravens. With Reed being gone and someone like that who could totally have 100 tackles this year. I know that might not. I know we're not talking IDPs, and I know this is fantasy talk, but out of everyone, I think the receivers are too spread apart, and someone like that could have an immediate impact and a defense that needs it. So, yeah, Matt Elam from Florida for the Ravens. Yeah.
Nice.
You're welcome.
Going off the grid. I like it. My Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with Geno. I think Geno Smith's going to I think that there aren't a lot of rookies to choose from as far as having really productive seasons. Running backs, you've got Le'Veon Bell, you've got Gio Bernard. Those guys are probably going to get around 800 or 900 yards, not Rookie of the Year numbers. And then wide receiver, all you've got DeAndre Hopkins. Really he's gonna put up good numbers, but Andre Johnson's on the other side, so you can't really expect him to get MVP type numbers. So I think Geno is the only guy on there that is in a position to put up MVP as far as rookie goes type numbers. As soon as he gets in, he could pass for 250 yards and run for 100 and do that a few times and be considered for Rookie of the Year. So.
No, I see what you mean, and you're saying MVP, and that's pretty much how Rookie of the Year voting goes.
Yeah.
And I was saying like defense, but right, Geno Smith is someone that if he's half as good as he was the first half of that season last year for West Virginia, that dude, he had they said the stat from the game today where they played Texas or someone, it was like 70 to 66.
Baylor.
Or Baylor, that's what it was. It was like 70 to 66 or something. And they were talking about how bad their defense was, but they're also saying Geno Smith's got some head case issues.
Right.
Like it was all about him, and that's definitely not going to work in the Jet system because that's what they need less of. But, yeah, when you got Sanchez, he's got the most potential, right?
Was I saying MVP?
You did, but it's the same kind of thing.
Well, I meant Rookie of the Year.
MVP of the Year.
But I was saying
MVP
the voting is kind of the same.
Yeah,
because you've got to be the most valuable rookie to your team, and a quarterback could
Usually.
definitely be that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why when I did a safety for mine on a defense that needed one, that's normally a good defense,
Right.
Yeah, for sure. No, I thought about it when you said it. No, it worked out, man. Nate, who you got?
A guy I've already talked about, I've talked him up already on previous podcasts, was Eddie Lacy. I think the system he's fallen in, they don't run it a ton, but just the giving the yards, and I think some of it falls into what Brent said. There's just not a lot of competition coming from rookies. I think if he just lives up to what he can provide Green Bay, he's going to have serviceable numbers where in the Rookie of the Year voting will go towards his way. I mean, I talked about Cedric Benson. If he would have played all year, he'd probably average about 1,100 yards from scrimmage. But he didn't play all year. But I think Eddie Lacy can play all year, and I think that's a good number that he'll land near. And if he does that, I don't think you can deny what he can do, for a Rookie of the Year.
I like Lacy, man. I'm totally cool with that. I mean, if he gets 10 touchdowns.
There ain't nothing wrong with a big old fat dude running the ball, man.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I like that. Rob, what you got, man?
My guy is going to be Rookie of the Year. It's going to be Monty Ball, I think. I think coming out of Denver, they like to run the ball, and Peyton lives on that play action. And in order for play action to work, they got to run the ball too. And when Peyton was at his best in Indy, he had the edge down there, and you've got to. He likes to run the ball. He'll even say, if you can't run the ball, you're not going to be good as effective at passing. And he's already proved at Wisconsin he can carry the ball 300 times this year. And he got Hillman that battling out for the starting role, but he's banged up at practice right now in preseason, and Ball, they're proving, he's saying that he has a lot better hands out of the backfield also, which in the PPR league, that's definitely a plus.
He's clearly
The most
the guy you want to go with over the Ronnie
I was
Hill.
going to say, they started with Hillman, and they tried to act like when preseason started, like Hillman's the guy.
What-
That's
He's
who
the
we're
most
gonna go
talented
with.
back
Well,
in
Hillman's
Denver.
still, as right now, it's
He's
starting.
still good.
in quotation
Right.
marks, but I think by when the season started, should definitely be Ball.
The quote-unquote starter,
Yeah, Tillman.
I don't know, who was Polk for, what team was that? Polk was the starter, and then, what team was that?
Eagles.
The Eagles, right.
Bryce Brown came off
Polk
the bench
was
because
the-
he's going to be the number 2.
Quote-unquote starter, so, Polk's going to be their number 2. Right.
All right, yeah, well, that's what's up for rookies. Next is MVPs. Next is MVPs. Nate, you want to start the MVPs?
Yeah,
You got
since
the
I
crazy
ruined your
picks?
inning right there, I'll definitely start us off. Mine's kind of generic. It's a guy that's already won 2 MVPs. It's Tom Brady. I think what's really going to push him over the limit is this whole offseason. They talked about him losing weapons and but in that offense, he makes it go. I mean, he makes stars out of nobodies. And
It's like in basketball when someone wins MVP, they always say it's because he was the only one doing anything.
Yeah.
He didn't have people around
he didn't
him.
have people around him, and and so I think Tom Brady is maybe it's an easy pick. I don't know, but a 4,800 yard, 35 touchdown season is almost in the books for Tom Brady.
I mean, I would think that throwing the ball is a lot harder than catching the ball.
And so
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I feel like Tom Brady's an easy pick. He's won 2 in the past. He's come second in voting a couple times. I think he was third last year. So
I think Tom Brady was a definite a good pick. I watched the Week 1 preseason, and he had hardly any weapons out there, but he makes weapons out of people. They draft very well in New England. My answer is going to be really generic as well. I picked Peyton Manning. He was third last year. He added a weapon. I mean, you can't even say weapon. I mean, Wes Welker is
a proven receiver.
What a great addition to the team. I mean, that's the best slot receiver he's ever had. And he's had some fantastic receivers, and I don't think it's far-fetched at all that Peyton Manning.
No, I'm like you. I thought Peyton was second in MVP voting last year. If you would have just asked me, that's what I would have said. I mean, and not only comeback, but yeah, I mean, mine, I've looked around at a bunch of names, but I keep going back to Peterson just because the only difference between this year and last year is that he didn't tear a CL healthy this year, I mean, and the numbers that he did, I mean, I even had down like Matt Ryan, who had Steven Jackson. I mean, he's got the potential with the 2 best receivers, to just, but no, it's Peterson, and until someone knocks him off, you're going to have to convince me otherwise.
If he breaks the rushing record, he wins MVP again.
I mean, especially for the Vikings, you know. I mean, we keep talking about Ponder and Jennings and CP. I mean, if you talk about the next three players for any team, they're all way better than those three.
Right.
You know, I mean, so if he can do it for that team, the Vikings made the playoffs last year, man, with an iffy defense.
And it was because of him.
Yeah.
After he hit CLs, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, so to me, until someone knocks him off, no, that's it for me, man.
Right.
AP.
I mean, I think everybody kind of thinks in the back of their mind, yes, it's AP this year. But they could key in on him defense. They could key on him. I don't know how you key in on a guy who,
They did last year.
you know, can
Eight
flip
out of
dudes over with
But
his
people
one
double
hand.
team
And,
Calvin Johnson, they can do it if they want.
right. And,
Go ahead.
and as far as my MVP pick, it's the guy you just said, Calvin Johnson. You know, I think that Calvin had that year that he had last year, and it was all compacted in the last 6 or 7 games because the first 5 games he did, I don't know, man, it was really bad what he was doing. He was doing like 80 yards and no touchdowns. He only scored 5 touchdowns.
He only had 4 or 5.
You know, normally if a guy scores, you know, if a guy's got 1,989 yards receiving or whatever he had, they're going to have like 12. They're going to have like, it was like 1989. They're going to have like 12 or 13 touchdowns to go with it.
He did all that, and they were horrible.
Yeah, and I felt
They
like
were horrible last
I
year.
felt like the Lions really played a lot of bad games. And so if they just have a few games where they just play a little bit better, you know, he could be over 2,000 yards receiving and double-digit touchdowns, you know. So
I just don't think receivers ever get MVP. You know,
I don't either, but I
think he deserves it. I mean,
I feel like Calvin Johnson is a guy who could change the game. He already did as far as the size profile that you want for your wide receiver. You want him to be 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", running a 4.3. You know, I mean,
the game has changed.
the game has changed, and Calvin Johnson was the first one. So
Players are the same.
players
And,
are
and,
the
and
same.
exactly, the players are the same. And that's,
Look,
and,
look,
and probably,
Calvin. Look, hold on. Let me finish that.
No, you're fine.
Calvin Johnson is an 8-armed man, okay? He's got 8 arms. This guy's got 8 arms. He reaches over his hand and grabs the ball with 8 arms. Ox arms.
You see that sports science on him? It was one of the best sports sciences I've ever seen. You know, with the stuff he can do, where he can jump, and how much he'd be able to get covered just in a standing position.
You know,
Yeah, when they do like the soccer goal thing,
Yeah.
where he can jump.
He can
Like,
cover a
he can
30-foot
cover,
radius
like,
in a
3
quarter of
soccer
a
goals.
second.
Like,
I think it really was like standing in a position where he, as it was vertical jump and stuff, it could be like a 12, almost a 20.
I mean,
Yeah.
we always
you know.
sing Calvin's
Yeah.
praises. I mean, he ran like a 4.25. I mean, and
Yeah.
he's like 7 foot tall. Not really, but you know, I mean,
It's
we
his
joke about
time.
them double teaming him. I mean, I don't know anyone else that gets double teamed by the safety in the corners like every game, and still gets catches. And
Reggie
still gets
Bush might have
touchdowns.
a part to play with that not happening as much. So.
And
Who you telling?
I guess kind of my thing for a
Ain't
receiver
gonna
to
be
win
on
it,
Reggie.
if a receiver is so great and they're putting up all those numbers, the quarterback gets the praise. And if Calvin's good enough to win an MVP, so is Matt Stafford. Which I'm not going to say Matt Stafford's going to win MVP, but I mean Randy Moss set a receiving touchdown record with 25 and didn't win an MVP. Who won? Tom
Newark had a
Brady.
point.
I'm going to throw
And so-
a fact in here real quick, Brent. I've just Googled this, but a wide receiver's never won the MVP.
And it's because the quarterback is getting all the
Yeah.
praise.
I didn't even need Google. I knew.
And I'm not going to try to hate that Calvin isn't MVP caliber.
That's crazy. So like Jerry Rice never won MVP or anything.
That means this
He's
dude.
my favorite player ever, and I don't remember
Steve
that.
Young in Montana won it all those years.
Yeah.
That means it's due. They're going to give it to somebody.
You
No,
know,
I mean,
a
it's a
receiver
good
can make a
pick.
quarterback. They can. And,
They're going to give it to somebody.
but they're going to give it to the quarterback before they give it to a receiver. You said yourself, it's easier to catch the ball than it is to throw it.
It's all quarterback.
All right, well, you know,
And if the Lions are doing that good, Matt Stafford gets the praise and not Calvin.
I don't think Stafford would get MVP even if he did, but that's just because
It would,
of
but he would
Who
get
he
it.
is.
who he is and who he's playing for.
But he would get it over Calvin.
He was that
If it
good.
came down to that, yeah, because I mean he's still going to be throwing to other people
people.
and getting more yards and touchdowns. But I mean, if you're Yeah, if you're arguing quarterbacks and receivers, yeah, I mean, 9 out of 10 is going to be
I
a
just-
quarterback, you know.
I'm not trying to hate on what Callaway can do.
No, I'm totally
I
cool
just
with Callaway.
don't think he would ever win an MVP.
Yeah, man, my MVP this year is going off with the same theme as the Denver Broncos. I think Peyton Manning's going to be the MVP this year. I mean, last year he threw for like 4,700 yards, and you know he just wants it. You know, they're talking big things out of Denver this year, and he's just one of those guys, those proven guys. You can't ever bet against Peyton Manning. If he doesn't get it, I think definitely A-Rod will get it. Aaron Rodgers, just for the fact that I think he's just flat out the best quarterback in the league. You can't bet against those two guys.
Yeah, man. So that's what's up. Everybody get her.
All right, I think we got time for one more. Like I said, it's IDPs. It's a defensive player. So, yeah, whoever wants to, I mean, it doesn't matter.
I'll go. I chose Patrick Peterson just off of the fact that he returns kicks and that's huge in our league. And I think that he's got a lot of potential for pick sixes, and that's who I'm going.
I like Peterson. I like Matthew. I know there's teams that get the guys. You know, we talked about earlier. You know, we usually go for tacklers and linebackers and stuff in our league. I looked at Luke Kuechly. You know, huge. You know, a lot of people don't even know who he is, but just like Adrian Peterson for MVP, if you ain't gonna say J.J. Watt, I don't know what you've been doing. I mean, if I could pick one IDP guy out of the entire league to have on my team, like we only had one slot, you get J.J. Watt. I mean, especially because DL is such a weak position anyway. If you go to our personal Yahoo settings and filter it by every position, J.J. Watt beat everyone, like doubled them up on every category in DLs like last year.
It's all because of
And
the
if you can
defensive
pick,
SWAT.
if you can pick, yeah, I mean, like pass defenses, he had like 30 something,
Yeah.
and the next was like 10. So I mean, if you can get him in your DL, and then still get a safety in your DB and 3 big
He can
linebackers
go in
in
your
D slot,
DE.
Yeah, defensive end.
You can go in
I'm
your
happy
DE
to I'm happy to grab
you don't have it.
4 or 5 points out of them.
DE and 3 DL slots.
DL.
Yeah.
No?
No, it's DL.
Three
Yeah, it is
three
DL.
Ds.
and a DL.
That's what I'm saying. You can have him
On
as
your
the
DL,
defensive
yeah.
end. You can have him as your DL, but
But that one
But
position, you're only going to get
If we're just
5,
gonna
maybe
pick-
You have
6
to have a
points
defensive
max.
end on that
You
position.
can get 12 from him, you know. So
If you have anybody else,
if you're just picking one
Good
defensive guy,
for sure good.
one defensive guy, yeah, I mean that's it for me. It's JJ.
Man, I had Patrick Peterson as my top independent defensive player too. Basically, I had J.J. Watt last year. I know that he's going to be number one again. He's just too big and too strong not to be. But I wanted to go ahead and go with somebody that I thought could overtake him just because of the potential that he has to play wide receiver. And, you know, he could get touchdowns. Even if you have him in your defensive position, if he scores a touchdown, you'll still get those points for it. So, you know, if he plays receiver and runs kicks back, and as well as getting tackles, interceptions, forced fumbles, pass defenses, all that, you know, his points could go through the roof. It just depends on how much the Cardinals want to use him. So for my top defensive player, it'd be Patrick Peterson.
I'm gonna jump in there. Mine's a guy I already talked about. I think he's one of the best in the game. It's Charles Tillman.
Peanut.
Last year, he had 73 tackles, 10 forced fumbles, 3 TDs, and I think that's its ceiling. If he does that again, that's insane. He was 6th in IDP scoring.
And he's like 48.
He's old. He's old, and he's still doing it. But in 2011, you know, what's his floor? His floor is 80 tackles, 4 forced fumbles, and 2 TDs. He's done it year in and year out. A guy that you can play in your DB slot and still have other slots to fill with linebackers and things that are getting tackles and fill out your roster. You know, my top dude that I'm targeting, Charles Tillman.
Old man Tillman.
All right, Rob, who you got?
Well, I had Patrick Peterson too, just for what Brent said. You know, I hate, you know, I don't like the idea of having a DB as my top guy, but they are talking big things about having him as a receiver down there. They're having like special packages for him, and he's gone out and said he wanted to play receiver. And I don't know how Yahoo is going to set that if you actually could get offensive points. If you can, while he's in there and as your defensive player, that's huge. You know, that's unheard of. that's like Deion Sanders. But just for sake of argument, I could say something that Marshall said a little earlier. I think Navarro Bowman will probably be my top linebacker out of there, just because he's like Patrick Willis, but he's actually healthy. He's not having injury problems, and he's had 100 tackles and probably 50 assist tackles last year, and that's tackles is what you draft the IDPs for,
Right, yeah. Everybody get everybody's picking and stuff? Right on. Well, thanks everybody for listening. That's another roundtable discussion. I don't know when we'll be posting them, but y'all will be looking on Facebook, Twitter, everything. We're going to put it up. Good luck this fantasy football season.